Does Thune actually make good here on some threats to stay into that first week of August, to say, okay, we're going to stay here because that's the only way we're going to get some of these nominations done before the fall?
I'll be honest with you. I don't quite understand what the president's gripe here is.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Monday, July 28th, 2025. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, we've got the latest action in the Senate. Number two, Republicans target Roy Cooper in North Carolina. And number three, the latest from the vault and efforts to make a significant change to the reconciliation law when it comes to gambling losses. All right, Jake, happy Monday morning. The House is out. The Senate is in. All eyes are on the appropriations process right now as the Senate Republicans try to find a pathway forward on that, as well as President Donald Trump's urging to get more nominations done before the Senate goes on break for the August recess. A lot to tee up here this morning.
Yeah, it's the last, what's supposed to be, I guess, the last week before the Senate heads out of town for the month of August. There is a lot going on, as you mentioned, the appropriations, nominations, and the Fed all this week as Washington begins. I mean, knock on wood, every time I say this, I don't have any wood, but knock on Formica or something. Every time I say this, something crazy happens, but the Senate, we're supposed to have a quiet period in August. That sometimes doesn't happen. So we are July 28th and funding runs out at the end of September. The House left Washington with just 2 appropriations bills passed. The Senate is trying to do a little bit better than that. The question is, can they get through a package of 3 appropriations bills, which is Ag, CJS, Commerce, Justice, Science, and MilCon VA, as a package before they leave for the month? Now, they ran a hotline on this. A half a dozen Republican senators said they were not interested in that. The question is there a path forward? That's what John Thune has to figure out over the next couple days.
Well, and does he jam them? Does he say does he call the bluff, right? I mean, for our listeners, maybe they might not all know what a hotline is. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
A hotline is when the leadership, okay, so cool. The hotline is when the leadership says, here's what we are trying to do. Tell us if you have any problems with it. And they send out an email to all Senate Republican offices, and whoever is in charge of this issue in a Senate Republican office says, yes, I would object, or no, I would not. So that's that. And another point to make clear here, if Russ Vought, who's the director of OMB, does any pocket rescissions, which is a way of rescinding funds that haven't been spent by the end of this month, by the end of September, rather.
Which he's threatening to do. We're saying that is potentially on the table, right? I mean, this isn't just out of nowhere.
Yes, right. He has threatened to do it for months, but he's still threatening to do it. Or if he tries to get another rescissions package done before the September 30th deadline, which is what he'd have to do because that funding expires, that would destroy the chance of a bipartisan government funding process. So a lot of twists and turns possible as we reach August.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing, and I just want to hit on this because I think it's important, is this nominations factor, right? The Senate has been moving fast on this. I know it might not seem like it, and there's a lot of process here, and Democrats are trying to make it as absolutely painful as possible because they're so upset on so many other different things. But Trump has his eye on the prize here. I mean, he has been focused on nominations. He's been talking to the chairman, to Thune, trying to kind of put the pressure on them to move as fast as possible, particularly when it comes to some of the ambassadors that he has picked that have not been confirmed yet. I think that to me is also something to watch here. Does Thune actually make good here on some threats to stay into that first week of August, to say, okay, we're going to stay here because that's the only way we're going to get some of these nominations done before the fall?
I'll be honest with you. I don't quite understand what the president's gripe here is. As Andrew writes this morning, there have been a lot of nominations that have gotten through. Thune has moved at a record clip to get the president's, obviously the cabinet, some sub-cabinet, a lot of sub-cabinet appointees and nominees through the process. Now, yes, there are a bunch of nominees that have still not been confirmed. I understand that could be frustrating to the White House. I've tried to get the administration to make clear to me what exactly the president is seeking here. What nominees does he? I mean, there's 100, and Andrew writes 144 nominees on the executive calendar. That's the list of executive branch appointees that have not been confirmed. I'm just trying to understand what the president wants here, and I don't have a good sense of that. I'll be honest with you. I just don't really get what he's seeking. So is it all of those nominees? He's not going to get that. And the other thing is, and I'm not saying this in a glib way, the president does have a lot of people who he's personally close with or politically close with that he has appointed to ambassadorships that have not been confirmed. That's just sometimes the way the cookie crumbles, because the Senate Republicans have to use up a lot of time to overcome Democratic objections on these nominees. So again, I am not clear what the White House wants. I am not clear if there's a list of, 15, 20, 30, 50 nominees that he wants done before the recess. I'd be interested to know what that looks like.
Wouldn't we all? And then on the economy, the last thing we're going to talk about here is Wednesday. We'll have new data on the U.S. economic growth, the advanced Q2 GDP estimate from the Commerce Department. Also important to watch here, Trump's latest round of tariffs are also supposed to kick in on August 1st. Trump announced a trade deal with the European Union on Sunday night. The economy continues to just be in the background, if not maybe in the foreground, a lot right now when it comes to what's happening with tariffs, what's happening with the reconciliation bill, what's happening with a lot of different things, something that Congress and the White House are continuing to wrestle with and try to message on.
The economy is, the market's ripping.
I mean, incredibly.
In a good way. Ripping isn't bad. They're not like ripping apart. They're ripping. But Trump is very unhappy with, everyone seems to know this, that with the Fed and the rates that Jay Powell has not lowered interest rates. And the consensus is he's not going to do it this time, but he is going to signal that he is going to do it in September, or the Fed's going to do it in September. So that'll all come to a head this week. Will he fire Jay Powell over this? It doesn't seem like it. He keeps saying he's a good man, but he's a little bit too slow and all that stuff. So that's also an issue this week. And we'll see how hard he goes at Powell before August sets in.
All right, Jake, let's get to the number 2 story of the morning. The Senate Leadership Fund is launching a digital ad blitz against former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper as the Democrat readies a Senate run. Always interesting to see when groups start spending heavy even before a candidate is announced officially. Obviously, this is largely due to the fact that Cooper has won statewide in a purple state after Tom Tillis decided to retire instead of run again. This is going to be one of the races to watch.
Big time. I mean, North Carolina was, without Tillis in there, North Carolina was going to be a tough race anyway. Now that Tillis is out, and it looks like it's going to be Michael Whatley, the chair of the RNC, it's going to be an incredibly competitive race. And Roy Cooper is a popular former governor in a state that has shifted over the last decade or so. Republicans are going to spend a ton of money to try to sully Cooper and to try to, make him less popular, because he is incredibly popular in North Carolina. Now, Republicans say that he was a governor with limited power. They did strip some of his power, Roy Cooper. The legislature stripped it. And they believe he's been able to kind of, step around issues and not take direct positions, and fine. I mean, that's a criticism that I think you'll hear a lot over the next couple of months, next 15 months. But this is a preview, Radical Roy. This is a preview of how the Republicans are going to attack Cooper as we get closer to this campaign. And this is going to be a campaign that is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, because this would be a flip for Democrats. This is a flip opportunity, an opportunity to change a Republican seat to a Democratic seat. And that's going to be very expensive.
And one area where Democrats got the candidate they wanted. Right. I mean, in the way that from Roy Cooper and certainly Republicans are going to attack him, but he's a known quantity, has won statewide. Certainly going to be interesting to see where kind of Democrats see some advantage. But the name recognition alone in the state of North Carolina, very high for Cooper. Let's move on to the number 3 story of the morning. From the vault, gambling reversal gains steam. Our very own Laura Weiss is in Las Vegas talking to lawmakers about how they are quickly souring on one of the big, beautiful bill's tax hikes on gamblers. A striking reversal after Republicans voted for it as part of the GOP drafted law just weeks ago. Interesting to see, as soon as something is passed, all of a sudden there can be some really parochial kind of provisions that lawmakers say, oh, we didn't mean to do that, or that actually has implications that we didn't understand. But making changes to something once it's law is a lot harder than taking something out before it's passed.
For sure. And something like this is a great item by Laura in Las Vegas. The question is, where does something like this ride, right? Because if you start opening this thing up, there's other provisions that people are going to want.
People don't like.
Yeah, other people don't like in the tax bill. This is something that immediately gains steam, especially on social media among people who gamble. And remember, gambling right now is not only Las Vegas. You could bet on from your phone on sports all over the country. I mean, many, I don't know how many states off the top of my head, but FanDuel or whatever, you could be anywhere and gambling on sports. And some people make I don't know about make a living, but gamble a lot of money on sports. And there are a small number of people who make a living off of, playing poker or playing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge tax change for them. And it's and by the way, this isn't like it used to be where gambling is completely in cash and the government doesn't really know how much you're gambling and all that stuff. Now, FanDuel or any app that you're using to gamble, they're tracking how much you're winning and how much you're losing. And you're probably going to get a tax form at the end of the year. But this is something that I imagine is going to be changed. It's just going to be a difficult thing to see how it happens. But as Laura notes, the change takes effect in 2026, so people won't feel it until they file taxes in 2027, and there is a chance that this will be fixed before then, so it might never go into effect. But it just shows these big bills are complicated, and there's a lot of unintended consequences when you do stuff like this.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it with your friends, family on social media. It's the best way for folks to find out about us. And of course, you can go deeper on all these stories and more by going to punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.